The motion, all those in favor? That is carried. Okay, let's go to page 95. National Tree Planting Project. Mr. Cridland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, to County Council, report CS 18-21, the G7218 National Tree Planting Project is asking County Council to basically agree to enter into a 50-year conveyance agreement on 4 acres of the Judd Industrial Park lands. As some background, as part of the 44th G7 Summit being held in Quebec this year on June 8th and 9th, the Canadian Biosphere Reserve Association are working with the Global Affairs of Canada, and what they're working towards is having this event as an example of environmental responsibility. One aspect is the reduction of the greenhouse gases, which will be caused by all the traveling to this conference, and part of that is through tree planting. So the local Biosphere Foundation have been working with CSD forestry staff, trying to put a proposal together to have tree planting here in Norfolk County to offset the greenhouse gases from the travel. Basically, I'll take you to page 95 and the agenda of the report. Any tree planting project to be undertaking must meet these criteria. One is the land must be publicly owned and accessible. So this piece of land that's been chosen by staff meets that. Tree species to be planted must factor in ecologically, social, economic, and cultural considerations, which our staff will do. And the project must include an educational component, promoting awareness about the importance of trees and their functions among students in the community, which their planned tree planting event will do. And also the project must promote the local timber economy. So with that said, I'm going to flip my pages here. Council is being asked to enter into that agreement. The only cost directly to Norfolk County will be through Community Services Forestry staff, and that will be in direction of the planting, obviously dedication of the land, maintenance, and technical resources on what trees would grow best there. So as mentioned in the report, the Tourism and Economic Development Department oversee the direction of the Judd Industrial Park. So if there are any questions on the site itself, I will look for the GM of that division, Mr. Chris Baird, to help with. And other than that, I'll turn it over to County Council for any questions you may have.
Councillor Wells.
Mr. Chair, we own the Judd Industrial Park land, do we? That belongs to Norfolk County? And I just wondered about, and further that council authorized the mayor and clerk to enter into a 50-year covenant agreement. If we own the property, why do we have to enter into a covenant agreement?
Through the chair to Councillor Wells, part of the condition of being part of this worldwide planting event is the groups involved want to see the trees go in and have them protected for 50 years. It's not good enough for us to plant them now, and in 2020, cut them all down sort of thing. They want at least 50 years to give the trees time to grow and absorb the greenhouse gases. So Councillor Wells is correct, we do own it, but this is saying that we will not deforest it for 50 years.
50 years passes, we can then cut the trees down if we so desire?
Through the chair to Councillor Wells, probably not a lot of us will be here at the table, but there will be something in somebody's file that will say after 50 years you can cut the trees. But yes, forward thinking.
Mayor Luke.
Well, I do want to ask a simple question to Mr. Baird. Certainly, we're all aware, well, I've walked the Delhi Rail Trail around this corner. We know Toyotetsu is to the east. Luscombe Drive, we know where we put the turnaround in to accommodate the greenhouse company. Like this 4 acres, is it not developable in any way for industry? Is it totally undevelopable for industry, Mr. Baird?
Through the chair, that's an excellent question, Mayor Luke. Obviously, we need to protect our industrial land for just those uses. What makes this particular parcel unique is that you're right. When you continue up the Luscombe Drive extension to the cul-de-sac, this is beyond that. The topography drops off significantly. It's a low-lying area. In order to service that for the land price that we charge and so on, we would have a considerable cost to put water, sewer, and primarily stormwater management in a low-lying area. To get that to work would be particularly expensive. In addition, in the report, we make reference to, through the official plan review, Council has approved some additional industrial land expansion in Cortland, Delhi, and Simcoe, and we are of the opinion to have put this forward as an opportunity to reforest some tree areas that were lost as part of the Luscombe Drive extension, and to perhaps provide some balance from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs should they come back to us and say, all right, you've taken some industrial land out of play in this location, but you've asked for more here. We're close to no net loss. We think that's maybe a suitable arrangement that would be looked upon favorably by the ministry. So that's the long and short of it. We've also suggested that that the area be defined as is shown on the map, and that we continue to maintain a corridor for a future extension to Luscombe Drive that may eventually go up to the 14th Street West and open up those lands there. So they just happen to be a really formidable area to try to develop. I don't think we would have much luck. And of course, there's a wellhead protection area, those policies that apply that make development really, really difficult for certain industries. So with all those things factored in, we thought this was a great publicly owned piece of property that Mr. Cridlin and his staff could use, take advantage of this G7 opportunity.
Well, I thank Mr. Baird for that. Certainly, the land abutting up to the east side of the walking trail is ideal for this tree planting. It is quite open there. So I am warming up to this idea of putting industrial land into a tree lot, if I will, based on the fact that Mr. Baird has indicated it would be difficult to develop because of the topography. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Height?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Cridlin, I can't find the part where they're paying us to use our land.
Through the chair to Councillor Height, I don't think you'll find that in there. There's no payment to use the land.
So why are we picking these guys over Alice? If it's too hard to develop and we're going to take out $100,000 worth of industrial land, why aren't we using Alice and at least get a return on investment for taxpayers? Norfolk County is, what, 30% forest cover? 4 acres won't put a big dent in anything right now.
Through the chair to Councillor Height, I'm for one, I'm not sure if Alice would take a project on industrial land. I may be wrong on that. I thought it was for marginal agricultural land.
This is marginal industrial land that if we take out of production because of the wellhead protection and the contour of the land itself, it's not very good industrial land in the first place. So obviously it's marginal. Norfolk, Alice, they pay us. No 50-year covenant. I don't know, that sounds like the better deal to me than this one, I'll tell you. Any ideas why you would choose these over the homegrown?
Through the chair to Councillor Height. No, I mean, there was no thought of replanting this through community services staff until the local biosphere had approached us looking for a project. And that's when staff had met with Mr. Baird's staff as well, and we came up with this 4 acres in the industrial land that was, it met all the criteria, and that's why it was decided on for this project.
Okay? Okay. Councillor Black, you're up.
Well, I'd like to move the recommendation in the report and then speak to it.
Go
If
ahead.
there's a seconder.
We need a seconder, please. Mr. Oliver?
Just to say that I support it, and I thank the Canadian Biosphere Reserves Association, and I'm sure the Long Point World Biosphere Foundation had some involvement in this as well. It is taking out some unproductive industrial land that would be very, very difficult to do anything with because of circumstances up there, as already been indicated by staff. And in return, we're getting 4 acres of trees for all the right environmental reasons and responsibilities. dealing with greenhouse gas, and it's a good idea. It's a small step, but it's a small step in the right direction. So look forward to watching it grow over at least the next, I hope maybe 20 years. I don't know, not 50, but maybe 20.
Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. All right. We are now moving on to page 101, Public Works 18-08, Concession A Bridge Alternatives. Ms. Robinson.
Through the chairman to council, before you is the memo that was requested by council at the November 7th, 2017 committee and council meeting. Council had asked for a memo that would advise council on, should council choose not to implement the preferred solution from the class environmental assessment, what would be required to do that, and we have provided the memo, and I'm happy to answer any questions with respect to it.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Public Works. I noticed in this project you have the bridge and both of the culverts on both sides of the bridge and 500 meters of road to repair this whole stretch. And the total cost, $2.3 million. So is there no way that it can be broken down?
Through the chairman to council, not and provide adequate access.
How so?
So if we don't do all of it, there's going to be load restrictions on it.
There is no, you can't cross it now.
Correct, but if we don't undertake all the parts of it at the same time, you're not going. My understanding when we prepared the memo was that council was desirous of opening the road again without any restrictions to it. This is the full cost to open it up, to make it to today's standards the way we have to open it back up.
Okay, I understand that.
You could stage it over a couple of years if council wishes to do so, but it wouldn't have the desired effect until the end of that time period.
Right. You certainly couldn't cross the bridge without one being there. I get that part of it.
But there's some culverts.
I know
Okay,
that.
Yep.
And now, are they, have you done the, I don't know, OSIM inspection on them?
Yes, we do. They're required, whether or not we have construction traffic over them, they are required to be done on a biannual basis, and they'll be done again, I believe, this year.
Okay, and are they still strong enough to survive? I assume so, because you've done the inspections.
They require some work, which is what's included in here.
Pardon me?
They require some remedial work, which is what's included in this package in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Right, the replacements.
Correct.
Okay, so
they're not. Yes, they're not in mint condition. They're not in a state that we would be comfortable just doing the work to the bridge.
Okay, so I guess we're looking at options here. So I'd like to see like maybe replace a culvert, the bridge, then the other culvert, or something to break it down. It's a lot of money. It's a big pill to swallow. The alternative is to rip out the bridge, and then what do you do with the two culverts? Do you leave them in the river?
Through the chairman to council, I'm not sure that I'm understanding your.
Well, they're overflow culverts. They've been put in there by
Correct.
humans.
Correct.
So that it doesn't take
So-
out the bridge. So if
Right.
you remove the bridge, will you be removing the culverts?
Yes, we would be.
And how much will that cost?
That's well, we haven't tendered for the removal of it at this point because council did not instruct staff to proceed with that. So it's hard for us to give you an exact cost estimate, but we would anticipate that with that, we would be in the neighborhood of $250,000 for all of the works required to fully remove everything in that area.
And that would restore the natural environment? Or that was just ripping them out and leaving?
That's ripping them out and doing no improvements, but just repairing the damage that has been done. If we are required to do additional upgrades to the area to restore stuff to where it was before we ever put a bridge in that area, we would be looking at additional cost.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm looking for, Ms. Robinson, is the comparison. Either we fix it and do it right, or we remove it. There's still a cost to it. And another part of that cost would be turnarounds. If we needed turnarounds where that bridge is out, because we had a fire there last year, the trucks had to back up, caused a big delay. There are a bunch of houses down there now. So, you know.
Certainly, through the chairman to council, so provided that we are not required, and we don't know that at this point, if we remove the structures that are necessary to be removed and install the appropriate turnarounds, et cetera, and we are not required to, we're required to do restoration work from the removal, but we're not required to restore the water course to the way it was before we ever installed the bridge, we estimated that we'd be in the neighborhood of about 450,000.
So 450K to remove it and 2.3 million to repair it.
That is correct, provided that we're not required to do substantial restoration work as a requirement from one of the provincial ministries.
Okay, so I guess I've been asked a ton of questions over this, and people are still having a hard time understanding. If it was a council-approved capital project in 2013, how are we still here? How has it still not come forward?
Through the chairman to council, I was not here for the entire period, so I'm going to piece together what I can determine. At approximately 10 years ago, it was determined through routine work that the bridge needed to be closed to all vehicular traffic and could not be open any longer. In the neighborhood of 2010, 11, 12, council historically simply budgeted an amount for a project. There was no definition, there was no separation between the engineering component and construction component. So in order to do any work to the bridge, we're required under the municipal class environmental assessment process to do a class environmental assessment to figure out what we're going to do with the bridge. Because it wasn't done in advance, there was a capital budget amount that included the engineering, the class environmental assessment, as well as all of the construction. That was what was approved in the 2013 budget. Staff then proceeded to, and I don't know how the delay occurred, staff then proceeded to work on doing the class environmental assessment. When the class environmental assessment was completed, the recommended solution through that was the preferred recommended solution is to remove the bridge. So that's how come all of the budget money was approved, yet the bridge didn't go forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess I've been also questioned about Infrastructure Canada funding. Is it true that the feds are threatening to send us lowly municipalities money to fix these infrastructure things, like problems that we have?
Through the chairman to council, I haven't seen any official announcements. I've certainly heard rumors as well, but I have seen nothing official to let me know whether or not there's any of those sorts of things to be undertaken.
Through the chair to you again, Mr. Robinson, how do you keep a project on the list? I know we've discussed it at council, there's been some grant, and miraculously we have a week to come up with the project that we want. We debate it on council, we send it forward and hope for the best. Do we have a list here at county to get that in? Have we compiled a list in case grant funding does come?
Through the chairman to council, for lack of a better phrase, the current list that we have would be our 10-year capital forecast. This is the first year since I've been with Norfolk County where we're actually working on a project in advance of the construction. So we're actually working on the design for Evergreen Hill Road. And in accordance with council's directions, we will not be immediately constructing that. So we will now have another list as well that will be projects that are shovel-ready that aren't scheduled to go forward yet, as opposed to those ones. So we do have a list, but we use our 10-year capital forecast for those ones. And then as soon as we get a funding announcement, we immediately go through the 10-year capital forecast to figure out which projects we could possibly have that are eligible.
Okay. Because, really, I guess what I'm trying to get to with this one is to spread it out a little bit. I don't want to see the budget amendment come in. I could defer it to the next budget meeting, our next capital in the fall, but we probably should move ahead a little bit, but not blow the bank. So that's what I'm looking to move here.
Okay, so through the chairman to council, if that is the wishes of council, because this has gone through the class environmental assessment process and it has to go back through the class environmental assessment process, Council could certainly direct staff to make all of the required changes necessary through the class environmental assessment process. We could be instructed to complete the design. Once that is done, from a class environmental assessment point of view, that is a class environmental assessment approval that's valid for 10 years, which means that council wouldn't have to implement the construction of it. It could be there, and if we had a funding opportunity similar to Evergreen Hill Road, it could certainly be a project that we brought forward for a funding opportunity should we have one. That would defer some of the costs for a considerable period of time. If council is desirous of staging some of the construction of it, we could certainly instruct the engineer when they're completed with the Class EA and able to do the design, that we'd actually like to see a staged construction process, and they could certainly include that.
Okay, and what would the price tag be on that? Is that the $7,000, $1,650?
Yes, plus the 165 to basically get it to be construction ready. So I would say, provided we don't have a Part 2 order request, I think the neighborhood of 200,000 would be sufficient to get it to that stage.
It's 175 according to my math. Being cheap. Need that extra 25 grand somewhere. But so, okay, so say 200K, and then would it be ready for the stage stuff at the rollout for the fall budget or the capital budget?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, could you, I didn't follow you.
If I move the motion to go ahead with the 200,000 today, and it would come back in stages for the capital budget, would that be correct?
We may not have, it depending on how long the update to the class environmental assessment takes, we may not have super detailed information, but we would be able to do likely better approximations for the capital budget process, yes.
Okay. Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move that motion. Somehow I need to word it like that, but I know our deputy clerk was all over that, so I'm listening.
Do you have it, or do you want him to go?
Yeah, I think.
That staff be directed
That's a good start.
I know, to issue a notice of amendment, prepare a Class CA amendment document, and should we receive no Part 2 order requests, proceed with the detailed design and tender document preparation.
Should we receive no Part 2?
Part 2 order requests. The municipal class environmental assessment.
In stages, project be in stages.
Yeah, sure, we can add the,
For capital
that
budget.
that the design include an implementation schedule for phased installation, or phased implementation of the preferred solution.
For the 2019 capital budget?
Sorry, can you just?
Let's read out what we have.
So, through the chair, I have that staff be directed to issue notice of amendment, prepare a Class EA amendment document, and should no Part 2 order request be received pursuant to the municipal Class EA. That's kind of where I've...
Can we do the last DCS report on the agenda? And while I send some wording to you, Stephanie, and then we can come back and then we can finish that one and then do the Summit Circle and the Factory Alley?
Yes, we'll move on to the next item and let them prepare it, and we'll return. Okay, let's go to page 105 and deal with the Summit Circle in Simcoe Storm Sewer Budget Amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I think Lee Robinson would need a little more time. Page 113, if I could offer that up, just to...
Okay, let's go to 113. DCS 18-39, Mayberry Homes and Agent Cahoon Engineering Limited for part lot control exemption.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A very brief report here, a bit of housekeeping. This is the townhouse development just up the road here, the former North School site. It's been redeveloped into a number of street townhomes. The request here from the developer is an exemption from part lot control. It's a mechanism that allows the individual sale of townhomes to be conveyed to purchasers. It's a normal process that we go through. Staff are recommending approval, and it's here for you, for your consideration.
Okay, Councillor Black?
Well, just a quick question, and I'm interested in moving the recommendation. I know out front on the street there, they've had to cut up the road to install water or sewer, and they have replaced it, but it's in terrible. I don't know if that's like a temporary repair or if they're coming back to redo it. There's all those cuts in a brand new, well, I mean, it's not brand new, but it's fairly new road. So is that the way it's going to be, or?
Oh, through the chair, you're correct. Those are individual service connections for water and sewer. They are temporary in nature, and they haven't performed very well. They're more or less like rumble strips as you go through.
Yep.
We do carry securities for that, and we have put them on notice that those need to be fully repaired.
Okay. All right.
So that will all be looked after.
And with that, I'll move the recommendation in the report.
Yep. Okay, Councillor Brunton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Chris. Chris, I'm not sure if I know the history on this, but was there an argument with this developer over servicing on Wyndham Street? And is the other half of the development on hold or out right now?
You're correct, Councillor Brunton, through the chair. This is the first phase of the development, which fronts onto the old Main Street, North Main Street. The second phase is on Wyndham Street. There were some concerns about the quality of that pipe, and Public Works has shown that in their capital projects to rebuild full urban reconstruction. And at the time that this development was being proposed, we were suggesting that they have to repair the full width across their frontage. All those individual connections would basically destroy what's left of that old original water and sewer line. So that has been part of the discussions, albeit it's taken a back seat because the developer has wanted to move ahead with phase one and get those properties sold. But those conditions and those discussions are still very much on file, and would be expected that there would either be a contribution towards that, but ideally the developer would rebuild that roadway to Public Works standard, and we would contribute our relevant share, of course.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Black has moved the recommendation in the report. Can I have a seconder? Mayor Luke, any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Deputy Clerk, what do you got for us?
That was perfect timing. Okay.
Going back to the concession A bridge, Councillor Height has moved that we do this in stages, which is the crux of the recommendation.
Okay, through the chair, again, moved by Councillor Height, and still waiting for a seconder, that staff be directed to undertake the appropriate steps necessary as outlined in Report PW 1808 to proceed with the Class Environmental Assessment Amendment for the Concession A Road Bridge to allow for the replacement of the bridge, and that staff be directed to complete the detailed design and tender specifications for the Concession A Road Bridge in a staged manner, and further that staff be directed to bring forward the staged implementation costing as part of the 2019 budget deliberations.
Okay. We have a seconder, Councillor Geisens. Further discussion, Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to support this. I support receiving it as information. This is a bridge that has been closed for over 10 years now. Usually we move ahead through a process where staff have a roads needs study. And that's how they bring forward all the roads to us for approval. This isn't in the roads needs study. So why are we even considering it? We already know that our road reserve budget is in the red, So, and council reviewed that and removed a few roads during our last operating budget. So I'm not sure why we would even consider this. It should be, we should go with the recommendation that was given to us by staff in the report and just receive it as information, close the road. So I can't support this.
Okay. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question to Lee Robinson. If this motion were to pass, are staff prepared as one of the options in terms of a design? And you've heard me say this before, Lee, on other sites, but I'm very interested in seeing if one of the steel prefab bridges that we read about in all the industrial trade magazines as being applied in scenarios much, much bigger than this one. We've seen pictures of them. Would staff also look at the possibility of bringing in Algonquin Bridge or other prefab bridge design / build / install contractors to give us a price for a single lane span?
Through the chairman to council, absolutely, this is something that we would consider. It may be a little bit tricky because of the overflow in this situation. It may not be ideal, but it's absolutely something that we're looking for various locations in the county to implement.
Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lee, this crosses Big Creek? Yeah. And what's the span of the existing structure?
Through the chairman to council, I don't know that off the top of my head. I can certainly provide that information.
30 feet? That's why they got the overflows in, I assume, because that's not very, I wouldn't think that's very wide. I mean, the bridge down at on 59 is a lot wider than 30 feet. So I would think a new bridge would have a wider span, I would think. But I guess and I certainly sympathize with Councillor Height, but we've had 10 years of no traffic on this thing. And I did drive up there, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. I was looking for the Swans up that way, but I couldn't get right close to it, so I apologize. I didn't see the culverts that you referred to, but I can see why they've been put in, because I would think the flow at that point would be quite heavy at different times of the year. But we've done an EA. The recommendation is to close it, and some point, and I know some of these things are hard to swallow, but here we're talking, what, 2.3 million? Possibly? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And what do we got, Lee? 200 structures, at least?
We have about 240 structures that meet the OSIM definition.
240, wow. And this is just one that at 2.3. It's a hard pill to swallow for me, but I can't support it. And do we have any traffic counts from 10 years ago? I guess not, eh? Nothing?
Through the chairman to council, it has a very, very low AADT.
Any idea, like what it would have been or what it might have been? No idea.
I believe it was classified as under 150.
Really?
And once we get under 150, we don't necessarily quantify whether that's 15, 20, 25, 100. Under 150 is sufficient number.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and it's been duly seconded. Councillor Height again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak one final time before we vote on this. All the councillors will recall earlier I left you a letter from some people that are interested in having that open. Okay, we also had a petition signed with 300 names that went on this before. Okay, the reason why this bridge has been closed for 10 years is because it was approved in the 2013 capital budget by probably most of the councillors that sit around here, and it just never moved ahead. So I wasn't here then when everyone else on council approved it to move ahead. The sign's been saying closed for repairs for 10 years. But 5 of them had sat there with approval from council to actually have it fixed. So People thought it was going to get fixed, Mr. Chair, and rightfully so. Not closed for good, closed because, no, closed for repairs. Ripping it out is not repairs. You know, like, and remember the dividend in Simcoe CN underpass? $1.4 million, Mr. Chair? Could you still drive over that? You could. You can't drive over this bridge. So, you know, as much as I feel that the West is growing, and we have all these trails and scenic routes, and then we have bridge closed for repairs. Some decade. This bridge was built in 1904. You'd think at some point somebody would have started saving money to repair said bridge. You knew it was coming sooner or later. It's outlasted it, probably everyone that was involved in the project. It certainly doesn't, it's paid for itself time and time again. And here we are with hardly any money, we're scrambling and putting forward a way to move it forward. Because it's been there longer than we've been there, and it's a shame to see it ripped out. It should be a heritage restructure, but I know we got too many roads to fix right now. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? You've heard the motion. Councillor Height wants to do this in stages. Let's call the vote. All in favor of his motion? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. All right, where are we? PW 1815, Summit Circle and Simcoe, Storm Sewer, Budget Amendment, page 105.
Through the chairman to council, before you is a report with respect to Summit Circle in Simcoe and a storm sewer. Through a variety of things, it has come to our attention that we have a municipal storm sewer infrastructure located on private property without the benefit of any easements, etc. There's some concern with it not working properly, etc. So staff are recommending a budget amendment for $100,000 to allow us to connect some catch basins on Summit Lane to Lyndale storm sewer and the abandonment of the existing storm discharge that's going to a rear lot catch basin. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Black.
Summit Circle. I've had a lot of people up there tell me that anything happens for Summit Circle to let them know, because they have, it's a mature area, lots of lovely trees. So if this is done, will it affect any of those trees in the center of the circle or any on private property? Because they would really be concerned about that.
Through the chairman to council, no, it wouldn't affect any of the existing trees.
Okay, so, and any damage done would just be put back to the way it is?
All damage would be repaired per normal county policy.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can give you a brief history on this, and I really don't think, in all respect to Lee, I don't think we need to hire a consultant to do this work. That stub was put in when we built Lyndale Road, and it is designed to catch the actual catchment area that came into it, but it's now been reduced based on the development to the east. There's another cul-de-sac, I was just looking up on the Google Earth to get the name of it. A lot of it's been cut off. I did speak to one of the owners today. The area, the reason we never connected that stub was because we were looking at local improvement for water and sewer up in there at one time. Everybody up in there is on a septic system. They do have town water, but it's connected to an old system as far as I know. At least it was never replaced. The area, I assume you're going to catch the two basins in the dip of the road as you go in. The pipes that go to the west were put in by the owners of those homes. It was nothing to do with the county. And the one, and I don't know how they got building permits, but they did, I guess, at the time. And they go, the pipe downstream actually goes either it's under the swimming pool or beside the swimming pool, but we did not put that in. We, at the time, we stopped at the edge of the road going in. There should be a survey up in your office of that whole property, but I think all you need to do is, personally, is connect the two catch basins where you go into the property. There's very little water coming from the east side now on that, but to hire a consultant to do all that work, I personally don't think it's needed, but that's only my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Wells, sorry.
Mr. Chair, could I have Ms. Robinson comment on bottom of page 106, the last paragraph? It should be noted that council approves this project. The additional work will have a negative impact on the roadway construction reserve, which currently has a negative balance of $22,530,502.
Through the chairman to council, that is a financial services comment, so I will look to our treasurer to respond to that one.
Through the chair to Councillor Wells, can you repeat the question, please?
We have a negative balance in the roadway construction reserve of $22,530,502. I was wondering,
Through the chair to Councillor Wells, that's a very good question. That was one of the main topics of discussion at our reserve report presentation to council last July. And we have several strategies to get that reserve back into the black over a 10-year period. One of the strategies is we made the commitment of $2 million from the Legacy Fund interest earnings every year to go towards that reserve. Another strategy we used is to, when we did certain constructions of roads, we basically took all the costs out of the roads reserve, even though there was water and wastewater infrastructure underneath. So now we're sharing that with the water and wastewater reserves. So that significantly reduced the commitment out of the roads reserve. And then thirdly, we're now embarking on a development charge study where Lee Robinson actually suggested we can make the argument that these roads being traveled, there's a portion of it related to growth. So we can use development charge reserves to fund some of these projects. So yes, that number is correct, but we do have a very good plan to fix it over the next 10 years.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Public Works. Ms. Robinson, does this need to be done this year? Can this not be deferred to the budget? Aren't you busy?
Through the chairman to council, beyond busy, I believe, is the phrase that I would use. It is something that we could defer if that's council's desire.
Do you have a motion on the floor, Mr.
No,
Chair?
I don't.
You do now. Move to defer capital budget.
Seconder? Well, Luke? Any discussion?
It's for the next capital budget session
Yes.
this fall, thank you.
Yeah. All those in favor? That is carried. I think that brings us to the end of business, does it not? Where?
Factory Alley.
Oh, Factory Alley, here we go. Yep. Public Works, 18-22, Factory Alley in Waterford, Storm Sewer, Budget Amendment.
Through the chairman to council, before you this evening is a report on the Factory Alley in Waterford, the storm sewer. Council will recall that there was a deputation that had come forward and spoke with respect to a CSP culvert, large CSP culvert that we have found going across private property that is draining some of our road drainage. We are recommending that we be directed to allocate $100,000 to this, and that we provide so that we continue to do an implementation to address the storm sewer on that property. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think you all remember the deputations that were here. Okay, questions? Councillor Brunton. I'm sorry, Councillor Height was up first.
That's fine.
Okay. This is the gentleman who dug up the big thing, right? Why do we need an engineer to fix this, Ms. Robinson? We have engineers. We have drainage people. Why can't we just fix it? 100 grand's a lot of money for one house. And obviously it needs to get fixed, I get that, but
Through the chairman to council, without getting into detailed engineering, we're not sure, this is just an approximate cost estimate for the maximum amount that we were looking for. The idea is that there is a substantial amount of different types of technology that we can use. It's a very, very, very large pipe. Over time, the drainage area going to it has been significantly reduced. There's the possibility that we can reline we can reline it with a structural liner. There's also the possibility that we can actually put a smaller pipe inside of it and then just grout it. So there's a lot of different alternatives, and without spending a considerable amount of money to bring council forward with the actual desired one, staff's intention is to go forward and find the best solution that minimizes the impact on all of the property owners. There's multiple property owners affected by that, although this is the first gentleman to come forward. There are other homes that exist there that are aware that the pipe is through there, but we do need to address it. So the idea is not, it may not be up to 100,000, but it will be however much it is, but that was sort of the cap that we were looking at, that we felt that we could very reasonably do some further explorations to figure out how much we could spend on it to do that.
so should this move forward today? When do you expect it to be completed, fixed, engineered, guys out there fixing it? Done.
Ideally, our intention is to have it fixed in July or August. It's not currently affecting his use of his property.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brunton, please.
No, my question was answered, thanks.
Okay. Any further questions? Mover? Oliver? Seconded by Mayor Luke. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Now, that brings us to the end of the business. Other business. Yeah. Other business. We'll start over here to my left, to the men in black. Look at them. They make movies about people like you. Okay. Anything over there for other business? Mr. CAO?
Nothing, thank you.
Bill?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Lee?
I've asked for enough tonight, thanks.
I think you have, yeah. We'll start with Councillor Height, other business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm being asked what recreation facilities will be provided in my ward lately. Now, I understand that Mr. Cridlin and I, we had a meeting a while back speaking about opening up the Port Rowan Community Center so people could go in there. I'm not sure how much progress you've made, but I'm still fielding those calls. And basically what people are asking me is if we could open up the community center for a little bit of time so that people could go in there and do their walking or actually use the facility, because it isn't like it's overbooked a ton right now. And I'm not sure if your department's gotten any further on that. We even had the deputation come into council about the pickleball courts being set up in there.
Through the chair to Councillor Oliver.
No, Height.
Pickleball
Councillor
player.
Height, God, I have a tough time tonight, I'm sorry, gentlemen. With that, there was the deputation. Now, we haven't had any real communication with the community. Obviously, you have yourself on hours and what they would like to see. So definitely we'll work with you on this project, but what I'm wondering is if we can have another deputation, or whether we can set some type of meeting up with the user groups that want to come in, see what hours they want, look at the schedule of the hall and see what we can do, and that would be my best suggestion.
Okay, maybe we'll set up a time and your department rents the hall with your credit card and we'll have a town hall meeting. Sounds good to me. Next up, our forest management report. We received that before our break. I got to read it all over, and just for some stats, 2,200 acres at $10,000 an acre is $22 million. Your return on investment at 2% of that would be $440,000 per year. We're making $75,000 per year. And it's costing us money. There's might be a discussion next week about some funding. There would be methods to pay for things, because sooner or later, Norfolk County, we need to find ways to come up with money. It doesn't grow on trees, unfortunately. It comes in at 0.04% is the return on investment we're getting on our money trees. So it's a pretty bad showing, really. for the investment market that's out there. And so my last question would be the investment report, Mr. Treasurer. Do we got a date on that one yet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Hyde, I'm happy to say that report will be coming a week from today.
Excellent. I hope it's better than the 0.04% we're getting from the trees. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Councillor Geisens, do you have anything? Councillor Oliver? Councillor Brunton?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have one issue, and I think, well, I think I know what might be happening, but it's regarding our, excuse me, I'm sure of the name, Chris, it's the improvement program. What? Community improvement program, sorry, I get so many things, but the amount of money we have given out for environmental studies, and the one that's really caught my ear lately, and it's to deal with the shipyards in Dover. 3 parcels of land, each one received $15,000. Is that what's happened on all 3 of those properties?
Through the chair, they're both 3 separate parcels, both equally eligible for that program. Right. And they have exercised that application. Okay, well, I guess I'm starting to have, I don't know what, I can't remember. Do we have a budget for that? That's it. So that if it goes ahead, there could be as much as $45,000 going to that project. Is that correct? That is correct. There's also another one in the Delhi area that is
right.
Pursuing that program as well.
Right. And do you know for sure, I've had a lot of discussions with a family in Port Dover regarding the service station one that we're dealing with. Are you, like, apparently there was a recent environmental report done on that property, and now there's one that was done in 2009 or 2011, I believe it was. They quoted the year, but do you know if we've put money into that one?
Through the chair, they have made application for a program under the CIP, but I do not believe it was related to the EA.
Okay.
So,
well, I guess my concern is like I was under the impression, and I know it's part of the program, but I spoke with a staff member of yours about the overall program, and I understand we're going to get a report on the overall programs that are available in that community improvement program. I just feel that the amount of money, I have no problem with people fixing up their facades for $2,000 and $3,000 or signage, but I just find it a little hard to accept when we give out that amount of money for environmental assessment. I'm starting to think it's really not something that we should be dealing with on private property. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Black? Councillor Wells?
One item, Mr. Chair, just a quick item. With the snow disappearing, people are out walking more and more, and they're bringing their dogs. Now, we have a bylaw that says that dogs can't leave their droppings on people's lawns. Do we have any bylaw that says the dog cannot whiz on people's lawns as well?
Thank you, Councillor Wells, through the chair. I know Councillor Wells did raise that question with me today. Bylaw 2014-46 deals with the care and control of animals in Norfolk County, and there is the removal of excrement clause, as you've mentioned, that is covered, but does not deal with the whiz, number 1, if you will. There's no reference to that in our bylaw, so we don't regulate it or fine or prohibit.
Councillor Black to that?
Could you imagine having one of a Norfolk County bylaw officer going around enforcing dogs whizzing on people's property? I can't believe that somebody would even think of it. You know, even the dog excrement. I have a property downtown. Am I going to call somebody to come and pick it up? Am I going to call bylaw? I don't think so. It's going to cost probably the taxpayers $200 for enforcement or for somebody to come down there. What do? I go out and clean it up. Do I like it? No. but I do it. I'm not going to put that burden on the taxpayers.
Thank you. Mayor Luke, top that one.
I have 3 or 4 things, but I'm not long, as you know. First of all, I do want to say to you that I am in shock that you got through this agenda tonight in 4.5 hours. I could not have accomplished that, so I want to say good job. I thought we'd be here at least till 9. If I don't shut up, we will be. First of all,
Keep the accolades coming, yeah.
First of all, I got an invite today that the South Central Ontario region, SCORE, put out. There are 2 sessions with guest speakers on, called Your Town Rising. And what this is basically, well, I'll read it quickly. It's these sessions are 2.5 hours, and they're filled with intensive practical examples on how to make your town shine, and it's aimed at providing practical ideas that can be implemented to improve our downtown cores. The one in Paris on April 10th is Tuesday, which is not good for, well, it's council day. It's from 10 until 12:30, but doable. But there's another one the day before on April the 9th, Mr. Chair, in Ingersoll from 1 until 3:30. I'm kind of interested in going, and I'm just saying that if there's another councilor or 2 that wishes to go with me, let me know, and I'll give them the information. The good news is it's $15 for the 3-hour session or whatever it is, 2.5 hours. As we know, there's a provincial, I guess the word is election, coming up on June the 7th. And that means it's time for the government to hand out money. So there's some good news, other than we know where the money comes from. And the first one I received, and you've probably got this too, was last week, on last Wednesday. The Canada-Ontario Infrastructure Signing Program Agreement, announcing $11.8 billion of funding over the next 10 years, of which there will be $10 billion given to Ontario. Well, I said 11.8 over the next 10 years. Anyhow, $10 billion is coming from Ontario. Of total, it's 11.8. Sorry, 11.8 billion in federal funding and 10 billion from Ontario. That makes sense. And there's a breakdown here as to the different things. But I wanted to say that there is $742 million that is being allotted in Ontario for community, culture, and recreation purposes. More details to follow as soon as possible for Phase 1, and the sharing ratio for recreation, culture, and community facilities. And the reason I'm announcing this is simply, or not announcing it, but relating it to you, is simply we haven't seen culture, recreation, and community funding of this nature for a while. But the sharing ratio will be 40% federal, 33 provincial, and 27% municipality. So it's not 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It's basically 1/3 province and 27% municipal and 40% federal. Anyhow, as I get more information on this, as it comes out between now and the election, I will pass that on to everyone. I was so excited to get this last week and see what happened. A letter from McGarry, and I had certainly made council aware of this letter. And that is under the Connecting Link program, the province has given us a maximum contribution towards the King Street reconstruction in Delhi at $1.25 $5 million. My question, if I may, Mr. Chair, Lee, is that a 90% contribution towards the project? There's no details about that. Do you know what it is under the infrastructure program through the Ministry of Transportation?
Through the chairman to council, they can do different ones, so I don't know exactly what that one, the exact percentage